You know, flying into bad weather, it's one of the oldest, most classic dangers in aviation. It's a risk we're all taught to respect from the very beginning. But here's the thing, this isn't going to be an explainer about regulations or how to read a weather chart. Nope, we're going deeper. We're talking about something way more complex, the human mind when it's under pressure.
I mean, the rule is about as simple as it gets, right? If you're flying VFR, that's visual flight rules. Basically, flying by looking out the window, you stay out of the clouds. It's lesson number one, day one.
And, this isn't something you just learn once and forget. It's drilled into you over and over again. In safety briefings, hangar talk, flight reviews, it's like a mantra, right? The whole point is to keep pilots safe.
And yet, despite all of that, despite the constant warnings, it keeps happening. Really good, experienced pilots still find themselves getting sucked into deteriorating weather, making a call that, from the outside looking in, just seems totally incomprehensible. So, that brings us to the big question, the one we're really going to dig into here. Because this isn't about pilots being unskilled or reckless, not at all. It's about the sneaky psychology that can trap even the sharpest aviators out there. So to start, we've got to bust a pretty common myth.
Okay, so first things first, we have to tear down this really common and frankly dangerous idea that these kinds of accidents only happen to cowboys, the reckless or the brand new pilots. The data just doesn't back that up. So take a look at this. It really lays out the contrast, right? On the one hand, you've got the myth, the careless, reckless pilot. But the reality, that's what's so unsettling. Accident reports are just full of stories about really skilled, well-respected pilots who got caught in a chain, not of one single bad decision, but a whole series of what seemed like small, reasonable ones at the time.
And this is where it gets really tricky. It's a total paradox. The very things that make a pilot great, their experience and their confidence, can actually become their biggest weaknesses in a pinch. Think about it. The more you've flown in iffy weather, the less risky it starts to feel. And that confidence that you can handle it, well, that can quietly turn into an expectation that you will handle it, no problem. Skill doesn't make you immune to psychology.
And so often, it all comes down to this one little thought, this little voice in the back of your head. It's rarely even said out loud, but it's there. I've done this before. That simple thought, it's so dangerous because it normalizes the risk. It takes something that should be a red flag and makes it feel routine, manageable. And that right there sets the stage for the next bad link in the chain.
All right, so how does this chain get forged? Because continuing VFR into IMC, it's almost never a single sudden mistake. It's a process. It's a chain that gets built link by link, and it often starts way before the pilot is anywhere near a cloud. The first few links in that chain, they're usually forged right on the ground, before you even start the engine. There's always a reason for the flight, right? A destination that matters, a business meeting, a family thing you can't miss, there's a schedule, maybe you've got passengers and they're counting on you. And to top it all off, maybe the forecast even gives you a little hope, suggesting things are going to clear up. Now, any one of these things is no big deal, but you stack them all together, suddenly there's this quiet internal pressure to just go.
In this progression here, it just nails how the mindset crumbles. So it kicks off with that external pressure we just talked about. Then, as you get airborne and the weather's just so-so, that's when normalization kicks in. You start thinking, yeah, it's not great, but I've seen worse. Next up is rationalization. That little gut feeling that's screaming at you, you start explaining it away. And finally, entrapment. The point where turning around actually feels like a harder, bigger, more complicated decision than just pushing on for another few miles. Okay, so now let's go inside the cockpit. The situation is getting worse. The gray is closing in. What is actually happening inside the pilot's head?
The very first thing that stress attacks is your awareness. It just shrinks. Your brain under pressure goes into tunnel vision. You lose the big picture, and you just zero in on what feels like the most immediate threat.
And in this scenario, what's that immediate threat? It's what's right out the front windscreen. So the pilot gets completely fixated on trying to see a way through, just staring ahead, desperately hoping for a little break in the clouds. And the price you pay for that fixation is huge, absolutely critical. That disciplined, rhythmic scan of the instruments, altitude, airspeed, heading, all of it, it just starts to fall apart. And with it, your situational awareness just evaporates.
And I really want to drive this point home. This mental breakdown, it isn't a character flaw. It is not a sign of being a bad pilot. It is a totally predictable physiological response to intense stress. Your brain is trying to help you by focusing, but in doing that, it accidentally robs you of the very skills you need to survive.
Okay, so if that's the trap, what's the escape hatch? How do we avoid it? Well, the answer is all about a huge mental shift. It's about completely redefining what it means to turn around. Look at this comparison. On the left, you've got the mindset that gets people into trouble. This idea that turning back is admitting you failed and that pushing through proves you've got the right stuff. But the professional reality, the way the absolute safest pilots think, is on the right. Turning back isn't failure. It is a sign of mastery. It's about making a smart call early to protect your safety margins. So what does this actually look like in the real world? The safest pilots, they make that call to turn around or divert early, while they still have tons of good options on the table. And when they make the call, they act decisively, no waffling. And this is the big one. They don't get into a negotiation with themselves, oh, just 5 more miles, maybe it'll get better. No, they decide and they act. All right, so as we start to land this thing, let's make it personal. For you, I want you to ask yourself honestly, what's that level of weather that makes you a little uncomfortable, but not quite uncomfortable enough to cancel? And what are your personal pressure points? Is it the passengers, the schedule, your own ego? Be honest with yourself. And this might be the most powerful question you can ever ask yourself on a day when the weather looks a bit iffy. I want you to imagine just for a second that this flight ends badly. It becomes a case study, an accident report that other pilots are reading. From that perspective, what's the one decision you would wish with all your heart that you had made earlier? Whatever the answer to that question is, that's the decision you need to make right now. Because when you strip it all away, it really boils down to this simple truth. Real safety isn't about having the amazing stick and rudder skills to get yourself out of a tight spot. It's about having the wisdom and the discipline to not get into that tight spot in the first place. Good pilots don't wait until they're sure it's bad. They choose to have a safety margin and they make that choice early.